The Horla, by Guy de Maupassant. May 8th, what a glorious day. I spent the entire morning lying in the grass under the giant plane tree that grows beside my house, sheltering it and wrapping it in its broad shade. I adore this region, for here I can breathe so freely. Here lie my roots, those deep, sensitive roots that bind us firmly to the land where our ancestors were born and laid to rest. They bind us to our customary ways of thinking, to the local food and customs, to the turns of phrase and the accents of the peasants, to the very sense of this soil, these villages, even to the air itself. I adore my house, where all my childhood passed. From the windows, I can see the Seine flowing past the garden fence, just across the road, a great, wide river, dotted with passing vessels, carrying its waters from Rouen to Le Havre. In the distance, to the left, lies Rouen, a vast city. Above its blue roofs rises a sharp-spired family of Gothic bell towers. There are so many of them, some delicate, some sturdy, and above them all reigns the iron spire of the cathedral. Countless bells fill the clear blue sky with a wondrous peal of matins, their resonant metallic call, their bronze song, carried to me on the breath of the wind, now barely audible when it stills, now distinct as it gathers strength. How wonderful it was this morning. Around 11 o'clock, a long procession of merchant vessels drifted past the garden gate. They were pulled by a tugboat, no bigger than a fly, which wheezed laboriously and spewed thick clouds of smoke. Following two English schooners, their crimson flags fluttering against the sky, appeared a majestic Brazilian three-masted ship, immaculately white, incredibly clean, and utterly radiant. I involuntarily bowed my head in respectful salute. So pleasing was its sight to me. May 11th. These past few days, I've been slightly feverish. I feel a certain languor, or rather, a melancholy. Where do these mysterious emanations come from, turning serene joy into despondency and calm confidence into inner turmoil? It is as though the very air around us teems with unfathomable forces, and we constantly sense their mysterious presence. I wake in splendid spirits, feeling as though I could sing at the top of my lungs. Why, then, do I go out a stroll by the river, only to turn back almost at once, hurrying home with a heavy foreboding, as if some ill news awaits me there? Why, does a cold wind, brushing my skin, agitate my nerves and darken my soul? Do the shapes of clouds, or the ever-changing face of the day, the fleeting appearance of our world, passing before my eyes, disturb my thoughts? Who can say? Perhaps everything around us, everything we see without looking, perceive without realizing, touch without feeling, encounter without noticing, exerts upon us, upon our senses, and through them upon our minds, and even our souls, an instantaneous, overwhelming, and inexplicable influence. How profound is the mystery of the unseen! Our imperfect senses cannot penetrate it. Our eyes, unable to discern the too small or the too large, the too near or the too far, neither the inhabitants of the stars nor those of a drop of water. Our ears deceive us, for they deliver the vibrations of the air to us disguised as sounds, and, like sorcerers, miraculously transform motion into notes, giving birth to music and lending song to nature's silent stirrings. Our sense of smell is far weaker than a dog's. Our taste can barely discern the age of a wine. If we had other senses, gifting us other marvels, how much more would we discover around us? May 16th. I am undoubtedly ill, and yet I felt so well all last month. I have a fever, a fierce fever, or rather, a feverish excitement that exhausts the soul no less than the body. I cannot shake the oppressive sense of an impending threat, the fear of some imminent disaster or approaching death, the foreboding of misfortune, which is unquestionably a sign of some as yet unrecognized malady smoldering in my blood, in the very depths of my being. May 18th. I had just returned from the doctor. I went to see him because I have completely lost the ability to sleep. He found my pulse rapid, my pupils dilated, my nerves tense, but detected no alarming symptoms. He prescribed cool showers and potassium bromide. May 25th, no improvement. I cannot understand what is happening to me. As soon as dusk deepens, an inexplicable anxiety seizes me, as though some terrible threat lurks in the night. I eat my supper hastily, then take up a book, but I cannot comprehend a single word. The letters dance before my eyes. So I begin to pace the drawing room, my heart gripped by an unreasoning and irresistible fear, the fear of sleep, the fear of going to bed. Around 10, I go up to my bedroom. No sooner have I crossed the threshold than I turn the key twice in the lock and fasten all the bolts. I am afraid, but of what? Until now, I have known no fear. I fling open the wardrobes, look under the bed. I listen. For what? Is it not astonishing that a trifling ailment, some circulatory disturbance, a minor congestion, or, say, the irritation of a tiny nerve, in short, some minor malfunction in our living mechanism, so imperfect and fragile, can turn a cheerful man into a melancholic, a brave man into a coward? Finally, I lie down in bed and await the arrival of sleep as a condemned man awaits the executioner. I wait, trembling with horror. My heart pounds, my legs cramp. I am shaken by chills though the sheets feel hot to the touch. And suddenly I plunge into oblivion, as into a bottomless abyss full of stagnant water, with not the slightest hope of ever surfacing. I no longer feel, as I once did, the approach of that treacherous sleep which hides somewhere nearby, watches me, ready to leap upon my head, close my eyes, and annihilate me. I sleep, a very long time, for several hours on end, and then I begin to dream. No, not a dream, a veritable phantasm. I am perfectly aware that I am in my bed, asleep, fully conscious of this fact, and yet I distinctly feel someone approaching me, scrutinizing me, cautiously feeling me, climbing onto the bed, pressing their knees into my chest, seizing my throat with both hands and squeezing with all their might, striving to strangle me. I try to break free, but my body is gripped by a monstrous impotence, that paralysis of will which seizes us in nightmares. I long to cry out, but cannot utter a sound. I try to move, but am utterly helpless. Gasping for air, I make desperate attempts to turn over, to cast off this creature that is crushing me, cutting off my breath, but all in vain. Suddenly, I awaken, crazed with terror, drenched in sweat. I light a candle. Not a soul in the room. After such a fit, which now repeats itself every night, I finally manage to fall into a calm sleep, and I rest until morning. June 2nd. I have grown worse. What, in fact, is happening to me? The bromide has no effect. The hydrotherapy brings no relief. This morning, I resolved to drive myself to complete exhaustion, though I already felt utterly shattered, and set out to wander in the Ramare forest. At first, it seemed that the fresh, light, transparent air, imbued with the fragrance of grass and foliage, was renewing my blood, refreshing my mind and soul. I set out along the wide road made for hunters, then turned onto a narrow path leading to La Bulle. It wound between trees of colossal size, their branches interwoven into a dense, dark green, almost black canopy that hid the sky from me. And then, suddenly, I was seized by a fit of trembling, not from cold, but from some inexplicable inner turmoil. I quickened my pace. A sense of unease crept over me in this solitary wood, a feeling of dread, groundless, absurd dread, at the surrounding wilderness. And suddenly, I fancied that someone was following on my heels, stealing so close that they were on the verge of touching me. I turned sharply. No one. Only the straight, wide alley stretching ahead, deserted, lined with giant trees, desolate to the point of horror. And in the opposite direction, it extended just the same, endlessly long, monotonous, oppressive. I shut my eyes. Why? Digging my heel into the ground, I began to spin rapidly, like a top. I nearly fell. Had to open my eyes. The trees were swaying. The ground was swimming beneath my feet. I was forced to sit down. And then I could no longer comprehend from which direction I had come. An unheard of act. Mad. Incomprehensible. My reason failed me. I turned at random to the right and came out onto the very road that had led me into the thick of the forest. June 3rd. The night was dreadful. I am leaving for a few weeks. A brief journey will undoubtedly restore my peace of mind. July 2nd. I have returned. Perfectly well. My journey proved most fortunate. For the first time, I visited Mont Saint-Michel. What a spectacle greets one who arrives at Avranches toward evening. The town is spread upon a hill. I was taken to its very edge, to the public garden, and there I cried out in astonishment. Between steep shores stretched a vast bay, fading into a hazy distance as far as the eye could see. And in the midst of this immense yellow bay, beneath a shining, golden sky, there rose gloomily from a sandy, a marvelous, sharp-peaked mountain. The sun had but lately vanished into the sea, and against the flaming sky there stood out clearly the fantastic silhouette of that rock, crowned by a fairy-tale structure. I set out for at dawn. The tide was out, as it had been the previous evening, and I could not take my eyes off the wondrous abbey that grew larger with every step. I walked for several hours, and finally reached the enormous pile of stone, which bears a small village and a majestic church. Having climbed the narrow, steep street, I entered under the shadow of this Gothic monastery, the most beautiful ever raised to God on earth. A veritable town, with countless low-ceilinged halls crushed beneath vaulted roofs, and lofty galleries supported by slender columns. I entered this gigantic work of human hands, built of granite, yet light as lace, adorned with towers, with slender steeples, where spiral stairways climb upward, joined to one another by delicate arches, and all straining toward the sky. Azure by day, black by night, with all their fantastical peaks, where griffins, devils, strange beasts, and monstrous flowers are carved. Upon reaching the summit, I said to the monk who accompanied me, "You must feel very content here, Father." "The winds are very harsh here, sir," he replied, and we fell into conversation, watching the advancing tide spread a steely coat of mail over the sands. The monk told me many stories, old legends connected with this country. Legends, always legends. One of them struck me particularly. The local people, the peasants of this region, declare that at night one can hear voices in the sands, followed by the bleating of two goats, one with a loud bleat, the other with a weaker one. Skeptics say it is the cry of sea birds, which sometimes resembles the bleating of goats and sometimes human groans. But the fishermen insist. When belated, they have met, not far from this lost little town, wandering among the dunes at low tide, an old shepherd, his face hidden by his cloak, leading behind him a he-goat with the face of a man, and a she-goat with the face of a woman, both with long white hair. They talk incessantly, quarreling in some unknown tongue, and then suddenly break off to bleat with all their might. And you believe this? I asked the monk. I do not know, he murmured, but I persisted. If there were beings on earth different from ourselves, would we not have known it by now? How is it you have never seen them? How is it I have never seen them? But we do not see 100,000th part of what exists, he replied. Consider the wind, the greatest force in nature, which knocks men down, wrecks buildings, uproots trees, stirs up the sea into waves that are like mountains, washes away cliffs, and hurls great ships onto the rocks. The wind kills, it whistles, it moans, it roars. But have you ever seen it? Can you see it? Yet it exists for all that. What could I say to such simple reasoning? He was a sage, or perhaps a fool. I could not say which, but I held my tongue. I have often had similar thoughts myself. July 3rd. I have slept badly. There seems to be some feverish influence in the air here. I am not the only one to feel unwell. My coachman is suffering from the same complaint as I. Returning home yesterday, I noticed his extraordinary pallor. What is the matter with you, Jean? I asked. I can't get any proper rest, sir. My nights are devouring my days. Since you went away, sir, it seems to have taken hold of me. The other servants are well, but I am afraid this malady will seize me again. July 4th. It has begun again, without a doubt. The same nightmares have returned. Last night, someone sat on my chest and, pressing their lips to my mouth, sucked the life from me. Yes, they drew it straight from my throat, exactly like a leech. Then, having had their fill, they rose, and I awoke so weakened, exhausted, and drained that I could not lift a hand. If this continues for a few more days, I shall certainly depart. July 5th. Can it be that I have lost my reason? What happened last night, what I witnessed, defies all logic. My head reels when I think of it. In the evening, following my recent custom, I locked my door. Feeling thirsty, I poured myself a half glass of water and noted incidentally that the carafe was full to the brim. I went to bed and, as so often happens to me now, fell into a troubled sleep, from which, some 2 hours later, I was torn by an even more agonizing awakening. Imagine a man who dreams he is being murdered and wakes to the sensation of a knife being plunged into his chest. He gasps, bleeds, cannot breathe, feels himself dying, struggles to comprehend. Just so did I awake. When I finally came to my senses, I was thirsty again. I lit a candle, approached the table where the carafe stood, and tilted it over the glass. Not a drop fell out. The carafe was empty, completely empty. At first, I could not grasp what had occurred. Then suddenly, understanding dawned, and I was so stunned that I immediately sat down, or rather, collapsed into a chair. Then I sprang up and looked around, sat down again, astonished and frightened half to death by this transparent, empty vessel. I stared at it, straining to solve the riddle. My hands trembled. Who drank the water? Who? I myself, of course. Who else but I? So, I'm a sleepwalker. I lead a double, mysterious life, unbeknownst to myself, which inevitably suggests one of two things. Either two beings dwell within each of us, or during those hours when the soul is bound by sleep, some alien being, invisible and incomprehensible, animates our enslaved body, which then obeys it as it would ourselves, nay, more than ourselves. Who can comprehend my loathsome terror? Who can understand the sensations of a man in full possession of his reason and memory, who gazes in mortal fear at a glass carafe from which the water has vanished while he slept? I remained in that chair until daybreak, not daring to return to bed. July 6th. I'm going mad. Last night, again, someone drank all the water from the carafe, or rather, I drank it myself. Is that so? Then who else? Who? Oh Lord, can it be that I am losing my mind? Who will lend me a helping hand? July 10th. What astounding experiments I have undertaken these past days. Unquestionably, I have gone mad. And yet, on the 6th of July, before retiring, I placed on the table some wine, milk, bread, and strawberries. Someone drank. I drank all the water and a little milk. The wine, bread, and strawberries were left untouched. On the 7th of July, I repeated the experiment with the same results. On the 8th of July, I removed everything except the water and milk. Nothing was touched. Finally, on the 9th of July, I placed only water and milk, carefully wrapping the carafes in white muslin and tying their necks with ribbon. Then I coated my lips, beard, and hands with lampblack and went to bed. I fell instantly into a dead sleep. I awoke gripped by inexpressible horror. Evidently, I had not stirred in my sleep. The sheets bore not a single smudge. I leaped up and rushed to the table. The muslin remained immaculately white. Trembling with dreadful anticipation, I untied the ribbon. All the water was drunk. All the milk was drunk. My God! My God! I am leaving for Paris immediately. July 12th. Paris. What a strange darkness had come over me these past days. Was I the victim of my own overwrought imagination? Or am I truly a sleepwalker? Or perhaps I was under the influence of a force already acknowledged, though as yet unexplained, which they call suggestion. Be that as it may, my confusion bordered on insanity, but a day in Paris, and I have regained my sanity. Yesterday, after a series of business and friendly meetings which had cheered and invigorated me, I ended my evening at the Comédie Française. They were performing a play by Dumas Fils, and that sharp, powerful intellect finally cured me. No, solitude is pernicious for those whose minds are in constant labor. We need the company of thinking people, capable of expressing their thoughts. Prolonged isolation compels us to populate the void with phantoms. I returned to my hotel in excellent spirits. Strolling along the crowded boulevards, I recalled my recent fears with a condescending smile. To think I had seriously believed, yes, truly believed, that some invisible companion shared my roof. How pitiful our reason is. It loses both rudder and sails upon encountering the slightest, inexplicable phenomenon. Instead of arriving at the simplest conclusion, I do not comprehend the effect because I fail to grasp the cause. We immediately begin constructing terrifying mysteries and ascribing everything to supernatural forces. July 14th, Republic Day. I walked the streets. Like a child, I amused myself watching the flags and fireworks. Yet what could be more absurd than merriment prescribed by government decree on a specific day? The people are a mindless herd, at times stupidly patient, at others ferociously ungovernable. They are told, rejoice, and they rejoice. They are ordered, go fight your neighbor, and they go. They are commanded, vote for the emperor, and they vote. They are told, vote for the republic, and they vote. Their drivers are scarcely wiser than the herd. Only they obey not men, but principles, which are absurd, hollow, and false for the very reason that they are principles, that is, certain propositions deemed unshakable and immutable. And this in our world, where even light is an illusion and sound an illusion. July 16th. I am profoundly agitated by yesterday's occurrence. I was dining at my cousin's, Madame Sabelès. Her husband commands the 76th Light Infantry Regiment in Limoges. Besides myself, there were 2 young women present, and the husband of one of them, Dr. Parent, who is deeply engaged in the study of nervous illnesses and those remarkable phenomena which have become known through experiments with hypnotism and suggestion. He related to us in detail the astonishing results achieved by English scientists as well as by doctors of the Nancy Medical School. The facts he presented seemed to me so incredible that I at once expressed my utter disbelief. We are now, he asserted, on the threshold of uncovering one of nature's greatest secrets. I speak of one of its greatest mysteries on earth, for beyond our world, undoubtedly, there exist countless more. Ever since man began to think, ever since he learned to express his thought orally and in writing, he has constantly felt the breath of something hidden, something elusive to his crude, imperfect senses, and he tries to compensate for their feebleness by the intense labor of his reason. While the mind remained in a primitive state, contact with the unseen bred and at the most primitive kind of fear. To fear we owe the popular beliefs in the supernatural, the legends of wandering spirits, of fairies, gnomes, apparitions from beyond the grave, and even, I dare say, the legend of God, for there is nothing more helpless, stupid, or absurd than these conceptions of a Creator God, born from the wretched minds of terrified creatures, no matter what religion professes them. Voltaire put it most aptly. God created man in his own image, and man has more than returned the compliment. But a little over a century ago, people began to see glimpses of the truth. Mesmer and other scholars set us upon an entirely new path, and for the past 5 or 6 years we have been achieving truly astounding results. My cousin, who also remained skeptical, smiled. "Would you like me to try to put you to sleep?" Dr. Parent proposed. "Very well, try," she said. She sat down in an armchair, and he began to gaze fixedly at her, seeking to hypnotize her. I suddenly felt uneasy. My heart began to beat faster, and my mouth went dry. I saw Madame Sabel's eyelids grow heavy, her mouth contract, her breathing become labored. After about 10 minutes, she was asleep. "Go behind her," the doctor said to me. I sat down behind her. He placed a visiting card in her hands and said, "This is a mirror. What do you see in it?" "I see my cousin," she said. "What is he doing?" "Twisting his mustache. And now, he is taking a photograph from his pocket." "Whose portrait is it?" "His own." She was not mistaken. A photograph had just been given to me that evening at the hotel before I left. In what pose is he standing? He is standing bareheaded, holding his hat in his hand. In this visiting card, in this piece of white pasteboard, she saw my reflection as in a mirror. The frightened ladies exclaimed, "Enough, enough, enough." But the doctor said, authoritatively, "You will rise tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. You will go to your cousin's hotel and ask him to lend you 5,000 francs, which your husband has requested of you, and which he will ask for upon his next departure." Then he woke her. On my way back to the hotel, I reflected upon this curious séance and was increasingly convinced of some trickery, not on the part of my cousin, who was as honest as the day, and whom I had known as a sister since childhood, but on the part of the doctor. Had he not held a mirror concealed in his hand, which he showed to the sleeping woman while giving her a visiting card by way of a blind? Professional conjurers do such things, and so I returned and went to bed. This morning, at about 8:30, I was awakened by my valet. "Madame Sable has called, sir, and wishes to see you at once." I dressed hastily and received her. She seemed distressed, her eyes on the ground, and without raising her veil, she said to me, "My dear cousin, I am going to ask a great favor of you." What is it, cousin? I'm so ashamed, but I must. I am in absolute need of 5,000 francs. You? At such short notice. Yes, for me, or rather for my husband. He has asked me to procure them for him. I was so thunderstruck that I stammered in my reply. I asked myself if she were not making fun of me with Dr. Parent, if it were not a part prearranged and rehearsed beforehand. But when I looked at her attentively, all my doubts vanished. She was trembling with grief. So painful was this step to her, and I was sure she was on the verge of tears. Knowing that she was very rich, I continued, "What? Your husband cannot spare 5,000 francs. Come, think. Are you sure he commissioned you to ask me for them?" She hesitated for a few seconds, as if making a great effort to search her memory. Then she answered, "Yes, yes, I'm sure of it. And he wrote to you?" She hesitated again, reflecting, and I guessed the torture of her thoughts. She did not know. She only knew that she had to borrow 5,000 francs of me for her husband. She dared not, then, tell a lie. She could remember nothing. She only knew that she had to borrow 5,000 francs from me for her husband. And so she resolved to lie. "Yes," he wrote. "But when? You never mentioned it yesterday." "The letter came this morning." "Might I see it?" "No, no, that's impossible. It was meant for me alone. It concerns matters too private. I burned it." "So, your husband is burdened with debts." Again, she did not answer immediately. "I don't know," she whispered, barely audibly. "I do not have 5,000 francs at my disposal at the moment, my dear cousin," I said curtly. She actually groaned. "I beg you, I implore you, get them for me." Madame Sable was in indescribable distress. Her voice had changed. She clasped her hands in supplication. She wept. She sobbed, not daring to disobey that cruel and absolute command. "I beg you, if you only knew how dreadful this is for me. I must have the money today." I took pity on her. "You shall have them soon, I promise." "Thank you. Thank you. You are so kind," she exclaimed. "Do you remember last evening well?" I asked in conclusion. "Yes." "Do you remember how Dr. Parent put you to sleep?" "Yes." "Well, it was he who suggested to you that you must come to me today and ask for 5,000 francs. At this moment, you are merely obeying his suggestion." "But the money is for my husband," she objected, after a moment's thought. For a full hour I tried to convince her otherwise, but in vain. No sooner had she left than I rushed to the doctor's. He was about to go out and listened to my story with a smile. Then he asked, "Well, are you convinced now?" I had to be. "Let us go to your relative." She was already dozing in an armchair, looking infinitely weary. Gazing intently at her, the doctor took her hand in one of his, and with the other he made passes before her eyes, which closed, unable to resist his magnetic gaze. "Your husband no longer needs the 5,000 francs, said Dr. Parent, as soon as she was asleep. "And you will forget that you asked your cousin for them, and if he reminds you, you will not understand what he is talking about." Then he woke her. I took out my wallet. "My dear, I have brought the money you asked for this morning." She was so bewildered that I did not dare to press the matter. Still, I tried to remind her of our morning conversation, but she categorically denied everything, thought I was making fun of her, and nearly took offense in the end. I have just returned to the hotel. I cannot eat any breakfast. So much has this incident unsettled me. July 19th. Nearly everyone to whom I have related the experiment of Dr. Parent has laughed at me. I no longer know what to think. A wise man once said, "But what if?" July 21st. I dined at Bougival, then went to the ball of the rowing club. Decidedly, our thoughts are entirely dependent on our surroundings. Amid a merry crowd, belief in the supernatural seems the height of absurdity. But on the summit of Mont Saint-Michel, or in India, how irresistible is the influence of environment and place. I shall return home next week. July 30th. I returned yesterday. All is going well. August 2nd. Nothing new. The weather is delightful. I spend my days watching the Seine flow by. August 4th. Quarrels among the servants. They say someone is breaking the dishes in the cupboards at night. The footman accuses the cook, who accuses the housekeeper, who accuses both. Who is the real culprit? It is no easy puzzle. August 6th. This time I am in my right mind. And I saw, yes, I saw with my own eyes. There is no longer any doubt. I still shudder to the bone. My hair still stands on end with horror. I saw it. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in bright sunlight, I was walking in the rose garden, along a path lined with autumn roses just beginning to bloom. On a rose bush of the giant warrior variety, 3 magnificent flowers were blooming. I stopped to admire them and saw with perfect clarity, quite close to me, the stem of one of these roses bend suddenly, as if an invisible hand had twisted it, and then break, as if that same hand had picked it. Then the rose swung through the air, describing a curve, as if someone had brought it to their face to inhale its scent, and hung motionless in the transparent air, a ghastly scarlet spot, suspended in the void 3 paces away from me. I lost my head and, rushing forward, tried to seize the flower. A vain attempt. The rose vanished. My irritation with myself is indescribable, for a rational, sensible man simply ought not to be subject to such hallucinations. And yet, was it a hallucination? I turned to look at the rose bush and immediately saw the broken stem between the 2 untouched roses. Then I made my way back to the house, shaken to my very core, as I have no doubt that night follows day. So I have no doubt that an invisible being lives beside me, that it drinks water and milk, touches things, lifts them, moves them from place to place, that it is, in short, material, though imperceptible to our senses, and that this being lives in my house, under the same roof as I. August 7th. I passed a tranquil night. It drank all the water from the carafe, but did not disturb my sleep. I wish to determine whether I am actually mad. Just now, walking along the riverbank under the blazing sun, I asked myself this question, not vaguely or casually as before, but soberly and directly. I have known madmen in my life. I have met some who remained clear-headed, intelligent, and even perceptive in every respect save one. On all other subjects they reasoned soundly, profoundly, and impartially, but the moment their minds struck upon the reef of their mania, they cracked, shattered, and foundered in the terrible, raging ocean known as insanity. And of course, I should consider myself mad, utterly mad, if I were not conscious of my state, if I did not analyze it with complete coolness. So, if I am subject to hallucinations, my reasoning faculty remains intact. Some unknown malady must have taken root in my brain, one of those diseases that physiologists are now struggling to understand, and this malady has undoubtedly breached my mind, my logic, and the sequence of my thoughts. Something similar occurs in dreams, when we accept the most phantom-like visions as perfectly natural, because our sense of reality, our inner monitor, slumbers, while our imagination remains awake and active. Has some tiny screw in the mechanism of my brain come loose? People who have suffered shocks sometimes forget names, or verbs, or numbers, or only dates. It has now been proven that every faculty of our consciousness has its own fixed location. Why, then, should we wonder if my ability to distinguish the real from the imaginary should sometimes fail me? These were my thoughts as I wandered along the riverbank. The sun set the water sparkling with countless points of light, gifted the earth with inexpressible charm, and filled me with love for life. For the swallows whose swift flight delighted my eyes, for the riverside grasses whose rustling was music to my ears. But little by little, an inexplicable unease took hold of me. It seemed some unearthly force was weighing upon me, stopping me, blocking my path, commanding me to turn back. An unbearable longing for home seized me, a feeling familiar to those with an ill-loved one. No sooner do they leave than they cannot shake the thought that the patient has taken a turn for the worse in their absence. And so, against my will, I hurried back, firmly convinced that bad news awaited me, a letter or even a telegram. But there was neither, and this astonished and alarmed me more than some new phantom vision would have. August 8th. Last evening was terrible. He no longer reveals his presence by any act, but I feel that he is here, near me, watching me, spying on me, penetrating me, mastering my will. Like this, hidden, he is more dreadful than when he announced himself by any supernatural manifestation. Nevertheless, I slept last night. August 9th. Nothing new, but the fear persists. August 10th. Still no change, but what will tomorrow bring? August 11th. Still nothing. I can no longer live in this fear, this perpetual expectation. I will leave. August 12th. 10 o'clock in the evening. I intended to leave all morning, but I could not. I wished to affirm the freedom of my will in the simplest way, to leave my house, get into my carriage, and order the coachman to drive me to Rouen. And I could not. Why? August 13th. There are maladies that seem to break all the springs of our being, paralyze our strength, relax our muscles. Our bones become as flesh, and our flesh as water. But my soul is afflicted. This is incomprehensible, unendurable. I have no energy, no courage, no control over myself, not even the power to exercise my own will. I no longer have one. Someone has exchanged my will for his, and I am submissive to him. August 14th. I am lost. Some being has taken possession of me and rules my soul. This being dictates all my actions, all my thoughts, all my movements. I am no longer anything but a spectator, enslaved and terrified of the things I do. I decide to go for a walk. I cannot. He does not wish it, and so I remain riveted to my chair, trembling with fear. I decide to prove to myself that I am still my own master. I try to rise, to stand up. I cannot. I am chained to this chair, and the chair is rooted to the floor, and no force can move us. And then, suddenly, I feel that I must go into the garden, pick some strawberries, and eat them. And I go. I pick the strawberries and eat them. Oh, my God! My God! My God! Is there a God? If there is, deliver me, save me, succor me. Pardon me, Lord. Have pity. Save me. What torment! What agony! What horror! August 15th. This is how my poor cousin was possessed and enslaved when she came to borrow 5,000 francs. An alien will have submitted her to itself, as if a foreign soul, a parasitic, tyrannical soul, had entered into her. Is this, perhaps, the end of the world? But who rules me? Who wanders about, invisible and incomprehensible, not of our kind, not human? So, the invisible ones exist. But why, then, since the world began, have they never manifested themselves as clearly as they do now to me? I have never read of anything resembling what is happening in my house. Oh, if I could only flee from it, escape, go away, never return, I would be saved. But I cannot. August 16th. Today I managed to escape for 2 hours, like a prisoner who unexpectedly finds his cell door unlocked. I suddenly had the sensation that I was free, that he was gone. Without losing a moment, I ordered the carriage and went to Rouen. What bliss, to be able to say to someone who obeys you, to Rouen. My first act in Rouen was to go to the library and ask for the hefty treatise by Dr. Hermann Herestauss on the invisible inhabitants of our world in ancient and modern times. Then, upon getting back into the carriage, I meant to say, to the railway station. But I cried out, home. Yes, I did not say it. I cried it so loudly that the passers-by turned around, and then I fell back onto the seat, frantic with despair. He had tracked me down and subjected me to his will once more. August 17th. What a night. My God, what a night. And yet I suppose I ought to rejoice. I read until 1 in the morning. Hermann Herestauss, doctor of philosophy and theogony, devoted his entire work to the invisible beings that either in reality or in imagination haunt our world and make their presence known in one way or another. He described their origin, their sphere of influence, and their power. But the one who pursues me bears no resemblance to them. It seems to me that man, no sooner than he learned to think, began to foresee and dread the appearance of a being stronger than himself, his successor in this world, and, sensing its superiority but unable to comprehend the nature of this new master, he invented, frozen with terror, an unheard-of tribe of supernatural creatures, vague phantoms born of fear. So, I read until 1 o'clock, and then I sat by the open window, where a night breeze, faintly stirring the air, cooled my brow and my thoughts. It was warm, it was wonderful. How I would have enjoyed such a night before. A moonless gloom. In the abyss of the dark sky, the stars sparkled and flickered. Who inhabits those worlds? What creatures, what beings, what plants? If the inhabitants of those distant worlds are endowed with thought, do they know that which is unknown to us? Are they capable of that which is unattainable for us? Can they see what is invisible to us? Will one of them not appear on earth one day, having crossed space and conquer it, just as the Normans once crossed the sea and conquered weaker peoples? We, mankind, are so helpless, so unarmed, so ignorant and pitiful on this ever-spinning clod of dirt, diluted with a drop of water, breathing in the night's freshness. I pondered all this until I fell asleep. About 40 minutes later, I was torn from my slumber by a strange sensation, one I had never experienced before. Still in the grip of sleep, I opened my eyes and at first noticed nothing unusual, but suddenly I fancied that a page of the book lying open on my table had turned over by itself. The wind had died down by then. Surprised, I began to wait. And indeed, before 4 minutes had passed, I saw, yes, I saw with my own eyes, how another page first lifted and then fell upon the previous one, as if turned by someone's hand. The armchair seemed empty, but I understood that it was he, that he had taken my place and was reading my book. With a single bound, a leap of an enraged beast, I sprang across the room with the sole desire to seize him, to strangle him, to kill him. But then the armchair overturned, as if someone had managed to recoil. The table shook, the lamp fell and went out, the window slammed shut, as if a nocturnal thief, caught unawares, had leaped out through it, clutching at the casements. So, he had fled. He was afraid of me. He of me. That means, if not tomorrow, then the day after, or someday, I will finally be able to cast him to the ground and trample him. Does it not happen that dogs bite their masters, tearing their throats? August 18th. I have been thinking about this all day. Oh yes, of course, I will bow and scrape before him. I will fulfill all his desires, all his whims. I will become humbler than water, lower than the grass. He is stronger, but the hour will come. August 19th. Now I know, I know everything thoroughly. I have just read about it in the Scientific Review. A curious report has been received from Rio de Janeiro. An epidemic of madness is raging in the province of São Paulo, akin to the contagious form of insanity that descended upon Europe in the Middle Ages. The inhabitants are fleeing their homes in terror, abandoning their villages, leaving their fields untended, claiming that they are owned, driven, and commanded like cattle by invisible yet tangible beings, a sort of vampire that sucks the life from them during sleep, and which also drinks milk and water, without touching any other food. Professor Don Pedro Enriquez, accompanied by several other medical scientists, has departed for the province of São Paulo in order to study on site the origins and symptoms of this unprecedented madness, and to propose to the emperor such measures as he deems most likely to restore reason to the afflicted population in the shortest possible time. So that is it. I remember perfectly that beautiful Brazilian three-master which sailed past my windows up the Seine on the 8th of May. It delighted me with its beauty, its grace, its whiteness. And on board was someone whose kind originated in those very lands. And he saw me, and he saw my house, also white, and he came ashore from that vessel. Merciful God, now I understand. I have reconstructed the entire chain of events. The reign of man is over. He has come. He whom our simple ancestors, gripped by primal fear, foreboded, whom agitated priests sought to exorcise with incantations, whom sorcerers tried in vain to summon on pitch-black nights, whom the prophetic terror of the earth's temporary masters clothed now in monstrous, now in enchanting forms, gnomes, spirits, genies, fairies, kobolds. In time, these naive beliefs, born of vague dread, gave way to the more sound views of penetrating minds. Mesmer discerned him, and physicians, some 10 years ago, even before this new master began to exert his influence upon men, grasped the nature of this power, and they began to amuse themselves with his weapon, that mysterious will which, subjugating the human soul, turns it into a slave. They called it magnetism, hypnotism, suggestion. What have they not invented? I have seen with my own eyes how they, like foolish children, played with this ruinous force. Woe to us! Woe to mankind! He has come, what is he called? This. I fancy he is proclaiming his name, but I cannot make it out. This, yes, proclaiming it. I strain my ears. I cannot hear. He repeats it, this. The Horla. I have heard it at last. Yes, it is he. The Horla. He is here. The hawk has devoured the dove, the wolf the lamb. The lion has torn the sharp-horned buffalo to pieces. Man has slain the lion with arrow, sword, and gunpowder. But the Horla, by a mere act of his will reduce man to what man has reduced the ox and the horse, his chattel, his slave, his food. Woe to us! And yet, the beast sometimes turns upon its enslaver and kills him. I, too, wish to, and I shall have his strength. But first I must perceive him, touch him, see him. The vision of animals, scientists say, is different from ours. Their eyes do not see what we see. And so my own eyes cannot distinguish this newcomer who has subjected me to his will. But why? How can I not recall the words of the monk from Mont Saint-Michel? We do not see 100,000th part of all that exists. Take the wind, for instance. There is no force in nature more irresistible. It knocks men down, demolishes buildings, uproots trees, stirs up sea waves high as mountains, dashes cliffs to dust, hurls great ships upon the reefs. It kills, it whistles, it moans, it roars. And have you ever seen it? And can you see it? Yet it exists for all that. And I reflected further. My own eyes are so imperfect, so poorly constituted, that they do not even discern solid bodies if they're transparent. Glass, for example. Place a sheet of mirror glass without its backing in my path, and I should run into it, like a bird that has flown into a room and dashes itself against the window panes. And how many things lead me astray and on a false paths? Why, then, should I wonder that I am unable to see a newborn being, and one, moreover, that is permeable to light? A newborn being. Why not? It was bound to come. Why should we suppose that everything ends with us? Yes, we, like all other creatures created before us, do not see it, but that only proves it is more perfect than other beings, that its body is more skillfully fashioned than our flesh, weak and flawed in its very foundation, overburdened with organs forever wearied, forever strained like over-tightened springs, flesh that with difficulty draws its life-sustaining sap from air, grain, and meat, like plants, like animals, an animate mechanism, prone to sickness, to ugly transformations, to decay, short-winded, fragile, unintelligent, and absurd, cunningly crude, unpolished and yet refined, a mere sketch of a being that might have been rational and great. We are so few in this world, all of us from the oyster to the man. Why should not some new being appear, now that the periods which separate the successive manifestations of different species have elapsed? Why should not another come? A tree with colossal flowers, blindingly bright and fragrant enough to perfume whole regions? Or a new element? Beyond fire, air, earth, and water, we have only four, just four, those nourishers of all living beings. What poverty! Why not 40, for 100, for 1,000? How meager, shabby, and wretched is everything about us. How sparingly conceived, hastily contrived, clumsily executed. The elephant, the hippopotamus, what perfect specimens. The camel, so elegant. But the butterfly, you say? That winged flower. I can imagine a butterfly as vast as 100 worlds, with wings whose shape, beauty, color, and motion have no equal. I see it. It flies from star to star, refreshing them with the balmy fragrance of its breath, its flight a soft, harmonious rustle. And the beings who inhabit those distant worlds watch it pass in ecstatic adoration. What is happening to me? It is he, the Horla, who possesses me and inspires these mad thoughts. He dwells within me. He is becoming me. I will kill him. August 19th. I will kill him. I have managed to see him. Yesterday evening I sat at my table, pretending to write assiduously. I knew he would come prowling about me, drawing nearer and nearer, so close that I might perhaps touch him, seize him, and then, despair would lend me tenfold strength. I would use my hands, my knees, my chest, my head, my teeth to strangle him, crush him, bite him, tear him to pieces. I lay in wait for him, my entire being strained to the utmost. I lit the 2 lamps and the 8 candles on the mantelpiece, as if by this brilliant light I might discern him. Before me stood my bed, an old oak post bed. To my right, the fireplace. To my left, the door, which I had left open for a long time to lure him in, but had then carefully locked. Behind me, a very tall wardrobe with a mirror, before which I shave and dress every day, and in which I am in the habit of glancing at myself from head to foot whenever I pass. So I pretended to write, for he too was watching me, and suddenly I was seized by a feeling, no, a certainty, that he was there, close by, that he was reading over my shoulder, almost touching my ear. I sprang up, my hands outstretched, and turned so swiftly that I almost fell. And then, the room was as bright as day, but I did not see my reflection in the mirror. It was empty, clear, profound, filled with light. My image was not there, though I stood directly before it. I saw the large, gleaming surface, and I stared at it, stunned, not daring to move, to lift a hand, feeling that he was still there, but still beyond my reach. He, the invisible one, who had yet absorbed my reflection. What horror seized me? And then, suddenly, I began to perceive myself in the glass, dimly at first, as through a misty veil, or rather as if through flowing water, and this water seemed to shift slowly from left to right, and my reflection grew gradually clearer. It was like the end of an eclipse. Something vague, dimly transparent, yet impervious to sight, had stood between me and the mirror. Then, little by little, that shadow cleared. At last I saw myself reflected fully, with my usual distinctness. I had seen him. To this day, the horror of it makes me tremble. August 20th. He must be killed, but how? I have no means of reaching him. Poison? But he would see me mix it with the water. And besides, would our poisons have any effect on his invisible body? No, certainly not. How then? How? August 21st. I sent for a locksmith from Rouen and ordered him to make iron shutters for my windows, like those used on the ground floors of Parisian houses for protection against thieves. I also ordered a similar iron grating for my door. No doubt he thought me a coward, but I do not care. September 10th. Rouen, Hotel Continental. I have done it. I have done it. But is he destroyed? I have seen such a sight that my soul shudders. Well then, the locksmith fitted the iron shutters and the grating to the door. I left everything open until midnight, though the air had grown cool. Suddenly I felt his presence, and what a mad joy seized me. Slowly I rose from my armchair and began to pace about the room, so as not to awaken his suspicions. Then I took off my boots and carelessly put on my slippers. I closed the iron shutters on the windows and, moving leisurely, went to the door and double-locked it. Returning to the window, I fastened it with a padlock, putting the key in my pocket. All at once, I sensed him growing restless, moving about me in alarm. He himself was now afraid, was demanding that I let him out. I nearly yielded, but I held firm. Leaning my back against the door, I opened it just a crack, just wide enough for me to slip through backwards. As I am very tall, my head touched the lintel. I was certain he could not have passed me. Of that I had not the slightest doubt. I had locked him in the bedroom, alone, utterly alone. What bliss! Caught in the trap at last. I rushed downstairs, dashed into the drawing room, which was directly beneath my bedroom, seized the two lamps, and poured all the oil onto the carpet, the furniture, everything I could lay my hands on. Then I set it all ablaze, and escaping, double-locked the main door behind me. I ran and hid in the depths of the garden, among a clump of laurel bushes. But how time dragged! How it crept by! All was dark, silent, and motionless. Not a breath of air stirred, not a star shone. Only masses of clouds, heavy and indistinct, weighed upon my soul. I kept my eyes fixed on the house and waited. How time dragged! I had already begun to think the fire had gone out by itself, or that he had extinguished it, when suddenly one of the lower windows burst under the pressure of the flames. A great, soft, caressing tongue of fire, orange and scarlet, immense and supple, crept up the white wall and embraced it all the way to the roof. A shimmer ran through the trees, the branches, the leaves, and with it a tremor of terror. Birds awoke, a dog howled. I thought I saw the dawn approaching. 2 more windows shattered, and I saw that the entire lower part of my house had become a monstrous inferno. But then a cry, a horrible, piercing, heart-rending shriek, a woman's shriek, tore through the silence of the night, and 2 garret windows were flung open. I had forgotten the servants. I saw their faces, distorted with terror, and their arms waving frantically. Half crazed with horror, I raced to the village, shouting, "Fire! Fire! Help! Help!" I met people already running toward the scene, and I returned with them to see it through. The house was now nothing but a dreadful and magnificent pyre, a monstrous funeral pile lighting up the whole earth, a pyre where human beings were burning, and where he was burning too. He, my prisoner, the new being, the new master, the Horla. Suddenly, the entire roof fell in, and a volcano of flames shot up to the heavens. Through all the windows opening onto that furnace, I saw the fire raging, and I thought, he is there, in that kiln, dead. Dead? But what if? What if his body, permeable to light, is impervious to that which destroys us, human beings? What if he is alive? What if only time has power over this invisible and terrible being? Surely this transparent, intangible flesh, this flesh akin to spirits, was not given to him to make him, like us, a victim of sickness, wounds, infirmity, and untimely death. Untimely death. Therein lies the source of all human terror. After man comes the Horla. After him who can die any day, any hour, any moment, from any trifling cause, has come he who will only meet his end on his appointed day, at his appointed hour, at his appointed moment, when he has exhausted the entire span allotted to him. Yes, yes, it is all clear. He is alive, and therefore, only one course remains for me. I must kill myself. Ladies and gentlemen, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories. Share your impressions and thoughts in the comments. I'll be glad to chat with you.